Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inner Secrets Revealed Kabbalah class with Dr. Gil. We want to start by saying Happy New Year to everybody. As always, I'm your host, Mike Gray. Welcome back to everyone, and thanks for everyone who's just joining us, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, or our new app, which will be up and running within the next few months, or whether you're listening to the replay from this podcast. Thank you for joining us. Remember, first we will be having the lecture portion of the podcast, and then we will be opening things up to discussion and answer questions during the interactive portion of the class. If you could please be so kind as to keep yourselves on mute if you guys are in the classroom until the interactive portion of the class, we'd greatly appreciate it, so that we could keep an organized environment for teaching and learning from one another. If you do have any questions or comments, please feel free to write them in the group chat, or you can send either me or Dr. Gil Tivon a message, and we'll be sure to do our best to address them during the interactive portion of the podcast. First, we have a few announcements to make. There will be these new weekly Monday classes with topics ranging from any and all things you could think of that are important for people to know at this point in time, which are related to metaphysics, meditation techniques, practices, mysticism, esotericism, hermeticism, spirituality, mental health, holistic medicine, natural cures, metaphysical medicine, astrology, palmistry, mentalism, dietary laws, nutrition, interpersonal relationships, romantic relationships, coping skills, and anything else you would think might be important along those lines. Of course, then we will have the return of my mental health, spirituality, and metaphysics talk with my Gray Podclass, which will be resuming every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You could catch the replays from these podclasses plus more videos at the Metaphysical Sciences TV YouTube channel. Again, the name of that YouTube channel where you can find all this and more is called Metaphysical Sciences TV. Also, we have a big announcement that we will be making at the end of the podcast. So now, we have a great episode ahead of us today. Today we will be discussing the secret of the Crown Sefira of the 10 Sefirot and its governing letter aleph, or aleph, which is the first letter of the Hebrew aleph-bet, or alphabet. Please remember to keep yourselves muted again until for the lecture portion of the class, and hold your questions and comments until the interactive portion of the podcast. Okay, so now, with further ado, I'll turn it over to the man of the hour. Let's give him the power. Everybody, welcome Dr. Gil Tivon.
Hello, Mike, and hello, everyone that is listening. I will answer you first by Happy New Year, and I will also answer you as Joseph answered at the time and said, it's nothing to do with me. It's all from above, from the infinite God. So any words in my mouth will be, I pray that God will put in the right words in my mouth for you to understand. So we're going to link together two incredible topics that join together because they are joined together at the very navel of things, at the very core of things. And we'll give you a short introduction, to understand how it works. And Mike, if you can upload maybe the Kabbalah Tree of Life that I've sent you, I'll be very thankful. That is, we discussed previously, and again, whoever joined us for the first time, my assumption is that you know nothing like myself. So looking at the Tree of Life, we're going to start from the top, working to the bottom. However, we're going to make it very, very palatable, interesting, and tasty. What does that mean? It means that every one of the Sefirot, and we're going to discuss this term now as well, as you have asked, dear listeners and viewers, is linked to a certain letter in the Hebrew original sacred alphabet. What does it mean? So first of all, what does Sefira mean? What is the difference between a Sefira and a chakra? Well, we discussed previously in previous lectures that a chakra is only the middle line in the center, and that really works. Thank you, Mike. But that's really not the case here. We discovered that there are 3 pillars in the tree of life. When we look at it in 2Ds and in 3Ds, there are 4 pillars. But for now, for our sake, to simplify, we discussed that there's a middle pillar, which we're going to discuss today, which includes the major spheres, Sefirot. We're going to discuss this term now, which means this is the middle line of balance, of equilibrium, which doesn't mean that there is a waiver or win-win situation. It means that it's something new, unique, that we formulate inside us, where the right side of the Sefirot, meaning that side of compassion, the masculine side, we are proactive and going to do things in life. And the left side of the Sefirot is that side of judgment or receiving, of our need to be on the receiving end in order to be giving. And the middle pillar is when we come to an equilibrium, we come to a balance, understanding what is the right decision, what is the right choice, what is the right behavior, and feeling under each circumstance in life. Now, so first and foremost, what is the word Sefira? So here I've sent it to Mike today. Sefira, as we know in Wikipedia, right, is each of the 10 attributes that God has created for us. It's like a prism. The actual transliteration is a prism through which God's light comes down to us. Because if I look directly in the sun, especially with a telescope, that will be the last time I ever view the sun. I cannot. And there's just a small torchlight of God. So in order for us to hold the vessel of all this infinite light of God, infinite vibration, infinite energy, we need a prism to bring it down to our level. And hence, Sefirah means there's a prism that is bounded, that is limited, according to what I can manage as a human being who is limited, to hold the God's light in different ways. Sometimes it will be compassion, sometimes it will be judgment, sometimes it will be the middle line of being decisive and balanced, and that depends very much on me and my actions in this world. Do I want to use my animalistic part and listen to my craves and my urges, or do I want to become godly? As our definition is, we are spiritual beings who are having a physical experience in this world. The plural of it is Sefirot in the Hebrew, which means that's the plural of the one, which are the 10 attributes or emanations, illuminations in Kabbalah, so which the Ein Sof, and Ein Sof means that infinite consciousness of God that is permeating the universe as we know today, even in quantum physics, that reveals itself, and continually creates both the physical realm and the chain of higher metaphysical and mystical realms, and the quite a few worlds up there. All these worlds are not foreign to us. All these worlds are not separated from us. We as a human being inculcate, hold, include inside us all these worlds. So many of us think, who am I? I'm so simple. I'm just a human being passing through this world. I'm insignificant, not noticeable. That is so untrue. You are created in the image of God, and you hold inside you all these Sefirot, which is the plural term for a Sefirah, which is the singular. So the term is alternatively translated into English as Sefirot, or you can write it with a PH or with an F. It makes no difference. And singular, as we discussed before, is a Sefirah. And now we're going to go into the tree of life, and we're going to join two things together to make it interesting for both you and myself. And that is because people have asked before, tell me a little bit about the Hebrew alphabet. So we know that there are many languages today in the world, and everyone is very well respected. Nevertheless, we know that the Holy Tongue and the language in which the Bible, the original Bible, was given, the Torah, was in the Hebrew. So there are 22 letters over there, and we know Kabbalistically that these 22 letters are and this is very important for you to listen and to take to heart, are the spiritual atoms of creation of this universe. There you go. Yeah. Are the spiritual atoms of creation of the universe. There is nothing here, including you, including your name, which is your role and definition and inner core, which is not defined by these letters. So yes, there are languages which are very highly respected, not only English and French. Let's go to Chinese. We'll be talking about close to 7,000 letters, and each one is very respected, as I said. But if you go to the original language in which the world was created and given through the word of God, it's got only 22 letters, and each of these letters we're going to discuss during the next few lectures, which are going to be very amazing, interesting, and illuminating and insightful. And each one of them governs underneath them a Sephirot, one of those prism lights illuminations of God that is coming on from high, from the infinite, all the way to us. So have a look at the first letter, which is the aleph, that first letter, which is the aleph, which Mike is going to, with his permission, to upload it now. The first letter aleph, which goes together with the crown Sefira, or crown chakra. Here we go together, right? And this is that letter. So this is not my opinion. I don't have an opinion over here. Kabbalah means it's a tradition, secret, ancient, mystical, metaphysical tradition that we handed down all the way from the first man Adam, all the way through Abraham, all the way to writing of the Zohar, so 2,000 years back, all the way to the Arizal, who lived some 500 years, who gave us a whole opening and enlightenment of the Holy Zohar till our very day. So I'm only a student and a scholar who's understanding this and trying my very best, like you, to make sense of it. Which means that the first Sephirah, the first big chakra on the top, is the crown chakra. In Hebrew, it's called the Keter. So I'm going to write it into the chat, and I hope you can see it, right? The Keter. And that Keter actually means that's the crown Sefira. And again, you can spell Sefira whichever way you wish, with a PH or with an F, makes no difference, as long as we all understand what does that mean. So what is that? Let's first of all discuss things in a simple way. That crown Sefira, where is it in our body? What does it mean? Why is it there? Well, it's hovering over our head, and therefore it's very unique in its position. All the other Sefirot, all the other kind of internal Sefirot and illuminations are within my body, because my body and my soul and my spirit, body, mind, and soul, contain all of creation, whether I understand it explicitly or I don't understand it implicitly and subconsciously. Only one Sefirah is hovering very close to the top of my head, which is called the crown chakra, the crown Sefirah, because there's godliness in it. And that's why it's called in the Hebrew Keter, which means also mechateh. It goes around and it hovers above our head, and it is our connection to the godliness. It is our connection to our future. Big Kabbalists can see your future, as we know today in quantum physics, that we can access a place where there's no time, no space, which is an overtime, overspace, the place of godliness and divinity, where they can see your future even today, because from their perspective, it's already there. It's already as if it's happening right now. So I'm going to first, in the first part, tell you a little bit at eye level what we can understand and what we have been handed down by tradition about this first chakra, this first Sefirah, which is the Keter, the crown. This one actually includes everything. The color of it is completely white, like a fluorescent light, because it includes all of creation inside it. It's like the sperm or the egg that contains all the fetus and all that child that will come to life later. And in the book of creation, which was written some 4,000 years back and plus by the great forefather Abraham, he discusses the fact that all the other kind of Sefirot are connected, interconnected intimately to it. We see that its position is in the middle pillar, because this starts, from there we start to actually be created. When we see a little child, when he's born, a baby, we see that the fontanelle up here is breathing in and out. because the soul has not come in yet. When the soul does come in completely, it comes in through the. When we want to go and reach our higher self, it happens through the. So what do we know about this incredible Sefirot? The Crown Sefira, or Keter as it's in Hebrew, is our superconscious. And it connects, or it includes in it, three different incredible attributes, dominant attributes that each one must work at, each one must inculcate, each one must rectify, and is the Hebrew word of tikkun, which means rectification to include it. Why? Because within those three, everything else is included. Let's discuss them. It's called, in English, it will be the ether, which we spell E-T-H-E-R. In the Hebrew, it's very similar, which is ether, which is an acronym for three words. The first one is belief, which is emunah with an aleph, which we're going to discuss now. The second one is an incredible spiritual pleasure and satisfaction that we get, not physical, not a physical age, but incredible inner spiritual satisfaction we get when we hit that place in us, when we know we go in the right direction, spiritual direction in our life. And the third one is our willpower, that incredible willpower to elevate ourselves, to get somewhere high, to be elated, to have an inspiration, motivation, which will draw us all the way up. Not something which is just physical, not material, but it's got an inner essence which touches and resonates who we are. So let's summarize. There are three different attributes, three different characteristics. If we want to master in our life, reaching that height of the Crown Sefira. One is faith. Why is that? Imagine you have a very loving mom or a father, and you don't believe in them. You never received love from them, or they never showed you a way to prove to you that you can love them, that you can trust them. Well, anything that they will tell you to do, you will not follow. They will not be your role model because you don't trust them. So trust and love and faith are interconnected. If we don't have faith, how can we do anything at all? If I go work somewhere and I don't trust and I don't have faith in the directors, in the owners of where I work, well, there is no way that I'm going to execute my work properly because I don't trust the system. So anything that we do in life comes down from that incredible faith we have, and say, even though life is tough, even though I walk in the shadow of the valley of death, I will fear no evil because you are with me. Even though it's very dark, even though I don't see the right direction, the right way, but nevertheless, I hold on tight with my faith. So faith is of incredible importance. And if you look at the different challenges, disasters, COVID, death, tortures, illnesses that people go through in our generation, nobody can go through that with no faith. And this is what Professor Carl Jung said. After 35 years of being a psychoanalyst, he said, I have never seen one of my thousands of patients who got better, who got healed without faith. So this is of incredible importance, faith in God, to inculcate in you that connection, that spiritual connection. When you meditate, when you pray, when you go to work, when you go about your daily business, keep this in mind. There's an overwatching, loving, incredibly infinite consciousness of God permeating the universe, as we proved it in quantum physics, which we must have a direct connection with. We are all the children of God. We have a direct line. You don't need to pray through me or through him or through her. You need to have a direct line to God. Secondly, is spiritual pleasure that you get once you hit that resonance within you, that you know, oh, I understand that what I do, my job, my life, my private life, is resonating with the universe, with the mind of God, because I feel that it touches my heart. I have this inner intuition, this gut feeling that this is the right direction, and therefore I get real inner, higher satisfaction from it. It's very important to work with it. This world was created for pleasure, but we got confused, pleasantly confused on the way, and people look to fulfill all the urges, animalistic urges. No, we need to be fulfilled on a spiritual level. The third element is the element of inner willpower. Without an inner strength and willpower, we cannot achieve anything. We will fail, we will stop. If we have addictions, if we have different urges, if we have different challenges in life, and life is tough for all of us, we're not going to make it if we don't work at our own inner world to make it through, to see it through, to have a vision. Faith, spiritual pleasure, and an inner deep willpower to achieve what we need to achieve. Now, that faith connects a person above nature to the infinite mind of God, the consciousness of the universe. Then you know that you are very limited. We all limited. Even if you have 160 IQ, 200, 250, which is the only one person in the world holds today, 250, and he went to Harvard when he was 11, 250 is very limited for God. We're talking about infinite IQ. So anything that happens in your life, have simple faith to know it's above my powers to understand. It's beyond my logic. Let it be. Let it be. And that kind of spiritual light is especially when you learn anything to do with divinity. Anything that is spiritual, like Kabbalah, that we're learning now, you feel that you are strengthening yourself. It influences your entire week, your entire life. It's not a once-off lecture of close to an hour, 50 minutes, academica, but it's something internal which changes you, which lifts you up as a human being. That Sefirot of Keter, of the crown, has the ability to give you a very balanced way of thinking and very open-mindedness, wisdom of life. We all are looking for life's wisdom. We all are looking for inner, deep, ancient wisdom. This is where we will find it. This is where we will find it. So of great importance. And again, this Sefirah is cleaving. It is really attached to God. Because if you ask yourself, where does the sky start? Where does the spiritual world start? Well, it starts the minute that I leave my physicality. And that's why it's hovering above your head and not part of our body, because it's so divine, it's so noble, it's so delicately spiritual that it has to just hover over here and we have to connect. Any of the commandments given in the Bible, if we adhere to this, we strengthen that bond. Because again, all the Sefirot, all that we do is connected to that Sefirah of the crown. If we don't, if we transgress, if we sever that connection, then for Kabbalists, we can see that the line of connection between you and God is being cut. Every time you do something inappropriate, this line is cut, and then we cry, we complain, why is it? Why is it that I don't feel a connection to God? Why is it that I don't feel that I can actually meditate or pray or have any kind of inner inkling or understanding, illumination, insight inside me? The reason is because we need to adhere to what the Bible says, very much like the best kind of thing that the parent expects from his child is to follow the right, simple directions, which are only good for the child. It's never good for the parent, only good for the child. Now, as I said to start with, that beautiful highest Sefirah, which is the Crown Sefira, is attached and being governed by that beautiful letter called aleph. So if you can upload now that letter aleph, let's have a look first of all, what does it mean, those letters? So we said that all those letters, thank you, Mike, all those letters are very, very special, very sacred. What makes them sacred? What makes them different than any other language? And again, we respect all languages, all people, all walks of life, wherever you are. That is given. But now we're discussing the Hebrew alphabet. So every letter here, we're written so many books on because it's the meaning of the word, of that letter. It's the meaning of the shape and the purpose why it is like this. Now, and with all due respect, if I use a name in English, whatever that name is, James, John, George, it's a name. It's a original name that we have given to somebody, but it doesn't have a further meaning than the name. It's a beautiful name, it's a lovable name, but George is a George. In the Hebrew, when we have every letter and therefore any kind of given name using the Hebrew letters, it causes to be a formula. It creates an incredible depth of understanding of further meaning than just that letter, just that word that we formulate with those letters. And if you understand that most of you do not read the Hebrew, but I just advertised yesterday one of the books that I've published only yesterday. It came out fresh out of the oven, which is 110 different permutations of what we get out of the tree of life. There are wills, W-H-E-E-L-S, of life that come out of this tree of life, 110 of them, which show us exactly where to walk, where to go, what do we come for in this life, guidelines, instructions to come to a high illumination and rectification. And this does not apply to, thank you so much, Mike, this does not apply to a singular person in a certain situation. No, all of them apply to all of us every day. And this is an incredible kind of study that hopefully we're going to get there as well. And I'll gladly share it with you when the time does come. We just have an agenda, a long agenda before we can understand what is in this book. I didn't have time yet to translate it into the English. That is upcoming. And we wish each other long and healthy life for me to have the time to also translate it into the English. So moving forward, back to the letter Aleph, Mike. And that is, if we look first of all at the structure, what does the structure of it mean? If we have a look at it, at the letter Aleph, we see that it looks like there's a middle pillar over there, lying a little bit on the side, which is the letter Vav, which is a letter of joining up, and two Yud and two little letters coming from top and bottom of it. If we have a bit of imagination, and again, this is not just a haphazard kind of imagination of somebody, but this is what Kabbalists tell us for thousands of years. This is why the letter was written this way. Okay, Kabbalah means not something that I thought about in a dream or a vision during the night. Something that people have received Kabbalists for thousands of years, that this is the case. So it looks like a body of a human being, that middle central trunk, and two hands joining on both sides. That's one meaning. Second meaning, that top part of it means this is the part of divinity, of godliness, of the soul that is joining us and hovering over our body, which is the crown. The bottom part is that physical, humane part that we have to live with. And that middle line is that very, very narrow, thin, delicate border line between the divinity and humanity, which we have to join in our lives. And again, I see that some questions are pouring through, and thank you so much. When we're going to finish later, which is soon, in about 17 minutes, I'm going to, as much as time allows, to respond to all your questions. Please carry on writing them in the chat, and I'll be able to answer them soon enough. So first of all, just a few meanings of how this letter looks. If we look at it, we see actually, and you cannot see Mama's, but you can see Mike's, and that is, actually, this is the most open letter that we have in the Hebrew aleph-bet. It's open on four sides, on top, on the right, on the left, and at the bottom. And it actually has got four heads, one at each corner of it. Top of the first section, the Yod, top of this Vav, which is the middle one, bottom of that bottom Yud, and bottom of this Vav. Why four corners? Those four corners is an incredible book of Kabbalah written some 350 years ago, called Compassion to Avram, by a very huge Kabbalist that used to live in Iraq then, some 350 years ago. Very well accepted book, difficult to read. And he mentions over there that stands against the four different upper Sefirot that we each have, and all of us reside in our head, in our brain, in our skull, which are the crown here on top, the wisdom chokhmah on the right hemisphere, the Bina, which is the understanding on the left, and at the back, joining all this right there at the back, where we have the base of our head, skull, this is the Sefira of that, which means of knowledge, of knowing. And we're going to discuss each one of these as we go along in the next few lectures, please God. So, what is the name? Why is the name of this letter Aleph? What does Aleph mean? Well, Aleph in the Hebrew original means to learn. Aleph, Iluf, means not to train, but let us learn together. So the actual beginning of life is all by knowledge. You know, a person's wisdom is as far as his books go, as far as your knowledge goes. So there's a need for us as human beings to really sit down and learn and devote time, not once a week, which is wonderful and great, but as an incentive to every day find time after hours to sit and learn, to invest in yourself, to enrich your soul, to enrich your knowledge, whatever it is that you want to learn, whatever it is that your heart craves and wants. But it should be something of value that makes you grow, that makes you develop, and only from there can you contribute to others. The more you invest in yourself, that kind of wisdom and knowledge, especially ancient wisdom, the more you'll be able to give over to others. So this lecture, for example, does not come from me just scratching my head. It's many years of study also of that, to be able to give over such a lecture, because it is of great importance, not only the learning, but the ability to give. And Kabbalists tell us as follows: if you just devote time to learn, but you never do anything with it, God is going to give you enough time in your life to do. It does not depend on LA Fitness. Does not depend on your lifestyle. Does not depend on the health coach. Does not depend on how much you eat and what vitamins you take. That's true. That should be very, very much at the frontier of our consciousness and awareness. But over and above this, if you just decided to learn, God will give you time just to learn. If you decide to learn and to teach others, God will give you time to learn and to teach. And by the way, teaching Kabbalah, teaching divinity is of the highest form of charity that you can do with anyone else. So I'm making you, each one of you, ambassadors of mine, that after this lecture, go publish it, do with it whatever you want, and give it over to others. It also helps you, but it's a privilege for other people to gain this kind of wisdom and spread it as much as you can. But if you also learn, teach, and do with this knowledge something, turn into practicality, then God will give you time to learn, to teach, and to be very practical about it, to bring it forth to the world, which means endless time. And so we see great giants of Kabbalah. One of them I learned by, his name was Rav Kaduri, right? He passed away a few good years back at the age of 112, which is a very, very old age. And he still had a little yellow and ginger in his beard, and lots of life and joy, right? And that's what happens when people learn this the right way and they do with it and they teach others. He taught many thousands of people. Then the result is that they live a very, very long life. And the biggest gift we have is life. So therefore, this is of great importance. Now, why is this letter, and again, let's go back to the Aleph, why is this letter such an open letter? It's open on all four directions of it. Because in the Hebrew, the word we said for faith is emunah, which starts with an Aleph. The word for love is ahava, which starts with an Aleph. And anyone that is open-minded and has in his name an A in the English or an Aleph in the Hebrew, right, means that that person's got a very open-minded kind of a human being. So usage of this atom, this spiritual atom called the Aleph, gives the person who owns it, a business, a company, a family name, or a private person, depends on the level of interaction, that ability to be very open-minded and see beyond the normal scope, because you are touching godliness, you're touching something very spiritual. If a person wants to be a very loving person, that letter Aleph can really help in their name or in that company, because including in that is incredible level of compassion. Now, last but not least, because you'll think that we are all righteous and pious and all good, so let's hold in a minute. Now, you've got a great, interesting rule of life, a secret in Kabbalah, which says as follows. The one who gave it to us was the Vilna Gaon, who lived some 300 years back. He was an incredible genius, a very pious man who passed away, lived and passed away in Vilna, somewhere in Russia. And he says as follows. Every time that one of the Hebrew alphabet letters appears first time in the Bible, at the beginning of a word, it shows us the essence, the core value of the letter. Again, every time we get a certain letter appearing in the Bible for the first time, within the beginning of a word, for the first time only, it will show you the essence of that word. Or where do we find first, I'm going to write it for you in the chat, where do we find first the letter aleph appearing in the Bible? Well, I'll write it for you in the Hebrew, because in the English, I write in the Hebrew and in the English for you. So in the Hebrew it will be, right, God's name, which in the English will be, right, I write in the way that you can understand, Elohim. Elohim is the Hebrew word for God. Not for the Lord, but rather for God. So, and it's written in the Hebrew, you can see there in the chat, that the first letter is aleph. So what is the essence of this letter? The essence of it, thank you, Mike, thank you very much. The essence of it is godliness, is divinity, is that incredible open mindset that touches on the higher self, on the higher consciousness of God that we can reach through this letter. So that's incredible. And so we understand also that the aleph also means, and this is the actual essence of the word. There's a book written some 2,000 years ago by one of the great masters that wrote a whole book about the letters. His name was Rabbi Akiva. He wrote a whole book about it. And again, it is not his imagination. It's not his own scratching his own mind, but it's something that's handed to him by tradition from all the way back, some over 5,000 years back. And he writes that aleph is the name of God, because he is aluf, he is the general, he is the king of the universe. Meaning, just like God holds all the infinite powers of the world in his hand. You know, in 1984, there was a great threat in the world where astrophysicists, and I'm in my background also an astrophysicist, were very petrified that the world is going to be destroyed, because all the different kind of planets lined up, and the sun there having to hold all of them all the way out to Jupiter, to Mars, all the way out to Pluto and to Neptune. That was a big deal for the sun. And so scientists said to everyone, pray and count your blessings, count down to your death. But it was very simple for the sun to hold all of this and the world carry on. The same applies so much more so to God. We think, how much can God take 8 billion people? Each one has got an experience. Each one's got a life. Each one has got private supervision, challenges, eyes, mucuses inside the body, different cells, different organs. How can God manage 8 billion people at the same time? Well, God says, my dear children, I've got so many billions of galaxies like this. It's too small for me. I can manage everything because I'm infinite. So anyone who's got the aleph in his name, he's got a spark of godliness where he's got incredible power to hold all that wisdom and the source of divinity in them in a compassionate way. However, this is very important. Any letter that we have, like in the English, can be used positively and can be used negatively. Comes the book of creation and explains, be very careful, be very cautious. Any letter that I'm giving you, depending on its position in the name, depending on the usage of it, depending on my private free will, can be used and can be abused. Can be a source of godliness, but I'm going to write you in the chat 2 different words. In the Hebrew, that will be, one word will be God's name, which is Elohim, God, and the other word, right, will be Ahu, which means cast. So both of them start with an aleph. But one means God, divinity, faith But the other one means being kissed. So thank you, Mike, thank you very much. So if you ask yourself, why is it that when we look, and that's a question that all the Kabbalists ask, when you look at the original Hebrew, the letter that the world was created with and started with, the Bible, is the letter bet, in the beginning. But the letter aleph was not used. It was only used when it comes to the Ten Commandments, which is Anochi, I am the God, your Lord, who took you out of the land of Egypt, out of the land of bondage. But the letter of the creation was never aleph. Why? Because there's another option over there, that aleph should be also that terrible letter that is used for being kissed as well. So every time you use it, don't take it for granted. We shouldn't be We shouldn't be complacent. Very good, Mike. We shouldn't be complacent about it. And that same letter can turn on us if we abuse our free choice, if we become condescending, full of ourselves, haughty, and can turn from that letter of incredible blessing to a letter of terrible curse as well, and rebelliousness. So having open mind, being compassionate, being loving, being very flexible, being connected to godliness is a gift. But we know of great people in the Bible, from the prophet Bilam to the great person called Korach that we find at the book of Numbers, that even though they were very, very high people that had Holy Spirit, nevertheless, that itself brought them all the way down because they went humble. They were full of themselves. So we have to be very careful not to abuse this power. And as we know, that all waters go to a lowly place. So the more humble you are, the more modest you are, understanding that what you have is a gift from God. There's nothing that's our own. Everything I own is a gift from God, including my intelligence, including the way I look, and including my height, including anything good of value, even spiritual, that I have in my life, is a gift of God. If you look at elderly people that were brilliant people, and in 1 second they got dementia, Alzheimer, lost their mind, lost their money. Elon Musk just lost the last 2 months, and in the Hebrew his name starts with an aleph, right? He lost $200 billion. Jeff Bezos lost in 2022 $80 billion. Zuckerberg, Facebook, lost $80 billion. Altogether, the three of them and a few more, $660 billion in just a few months. So nobody can say, I made it, I'm the king of the universe, I've got it all. So you have to be very, very careful to stay humble and to stay giving. And again, I'm sure all these people are giving people and good people, but it's a lesson for all of us never to feel I made it, I can become haughty, I can become a dictator, because the same letter can turn on us. And that is called Kabbalistically a permutation. Permutation means there is something very good in it, but something that can flip on you if you don't watch it. Who is in control of it? You, not God. God gave us the power to be little creators. If we become haughty, become full of ourselves, if we dictate to people, if we try to control others, then instead of using it, we're going to lose it, which is very, very seriously bad. Last but not least, the book of creation tells us, and this is of extreme importance for you, the world was created in three things. The world was created in time, in space, and with the free will of who I am in my psyche. Time, space, and free will in my psyche. Great importance. So the letter aleph being the first one in the alphabet, where do we find it within our creation? Very important. So within time, we find it in spring, and we find it in autumn. What does it mean? If you have an aleph in your name, anywhere in your name, right, or the A in the English, it means that you will love and be very happy with autumn and with spring. It's a period, it's a season that your heart expands, that you resonate with. And this letter aleph controls both the Sephirot of Crown and both these two incredibly big seasons, autumn and spring. Secondly, where do we find it within space? Well, within space, we find it in two places. First of all, hovering over our heads. And secondly, all these incredible lines that we have between the two Sefirot of compassion on my right. You can see there, yes, thank you, Mike. Chesed on the right, as we saw before, and judgment on the left. That incredible inner line of my chest, it's all controlled by the letter aleph. So if anyone got chest pains, if anyone has got problem with COVID, hard breathing, or heart problems, then we have to check something to do with the aleph. And I delve into this mystically, metaphysically for many years. Sometimes we add a name to a person to strengthen his physique. Because as I told you, the physique is only governed by the spiritual. So our physical body is governed by the Sephirot, which is governed by that letter. So when we have any ailment which is physical, we go up back to the letters and we add a name to a person. We change something there to make sure he gets the right illumination, the right enlightenment from God. I think I said a lot and maybe a little bit too much, and it's a lot for you, for one, to sit on and digest. So we can open it, Mike, to different kind of people and questions. So I cannot see the chat of people because I'm logged in through a different kind of channel. So you can please share it with me, people, or the questions. If I can see them or the questions, I'll be very thankful. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, well, actually, it looks like everyone who was here has left us. We were left with a couple of questions, though, however. So let me get to that right now.
What is the reason? The reason because they didn't have a connection to Facebook. I see now that some people, they texted me that they don't have the actual connection to Facebook. I'm not sure why, even though I posted it yesterday in many places.
Right. I'm not sure exactly what the issue was tonight either. Again, next week I will try again to put, I guess more clearer instructions on how to actually join the classroom, because there were several different rooms started because people were calling in a little bit early. So I think maybe to fix that next time we'll start a little early. And make sure everyone gets into the same room.
Right.
With that said, we did have a couple questions. One of the things that was asked was, "Is this true about the letter aleph?" And then they proceeded to include this description. So, Dr. Gil, you are the expert on this.
So again, what is the actual question that you have there?
Okay, the question is, aleph also means Moshe, which is the Hebrew name for Moses, Moses' soul in the body of a descendant of King David. Aleph represents Moses receiving the Holy Spirit's call and being crowned king on Mount Sinai and given 2 sapphire stone tablets. And then he goes on to ask about the letter that was added to Abraham's name and how this is relevant. Because you mentioned that adding a name can change.
So I understand. So there is no, let me write for you in the chat between us the name of Moshe in the Hebrew, which is Moses in the English, right? As it's written in the original Hebrew. First of all, Moshe does not have, you can see in the chat, Moshe does not have an aleph. Abraham's name in the original Hebrew has an aleph in his name, which is the beginning, and the letter that was added to his name is the hey, the second one from the end, the second one from the end, yes. Moshe does not have an aleph. Nevertheless, it is true that, which is very interesting, in the original Hebrew, the name for God it's called Vidain, which is called in Hebrew Hashem. Now, if you read, it's like this. Let me try and make sense for you. If you read the word Moshe backwards, which is the permutation, backwards, the name for Moshe in the Hebrew, the backwards for it is Hashem, which means the holy name of God. In other words, he had an incredible enlightenment, prophecy, because of his very humble nature and actions, which never deviated from what Hashem, which God is instructing to get a direct prophecy and to be handed down the Ten Commandments and the Bible through him. Now, as I said, the Ten Commandments do start with the letter aleph, which is pertinent to that question, because that is the name of one of the names of God, which is Anochi. I am the God, your Lord, who took you out of the house of slavery, the heart of Egypt. So he was privileged to do so. And the whole Pentateuch, which is the 5 books of Moses, are called after him, the 5 books of Moses. But he didn't even want to be written there. He never chose to be there. When God offered him the job, he said, not me. I said, my brother Aaron is better than me, he's holier than me, he's more sanctified than me. He was a very humble human being. So we have a rule. Whoever runs after the leadership and says, me, that's definitely not the chosen one. The same applied to King David. He had 7 big brothers, who each one handsome and taller than him. He was not so tall, he was short. And even the father, Ishai, never thought in the Bible that it was King David, because he was thrown out to the forest. And the prophet Samuel over there asked, no, you must have another son, because God is telling me it's a different son. I don't have another one. He never even thought it could be him, because he was so humble. He was so far away from that. He was a leader, born leader, but he didn't ask for the job. So if you ask for the job from God, God will tell you, well, do me a favor, stand in line. But if you're a leader and you go the right direction and you make sure that you do what God has asked you, there's no question that God will choose you in your position in life. It makes no difference which generation. You don't have to lead a new religion. You just have to follow the footsteps of those who preceded us, the ancestors, and I'm sure that in your little place, in your little plot of God, God is going to choose you for whatever is necessary. Yes, Mike. Any 1 or 2 more questions?
Yes. So, there was one other question, which was, and this, I'm not sure if it is related, maybe it is, was who practiced Kabbalah before Abraham? So,
who practiced Kabbalah before Abraham? This is a very good question. And the answer is all those great names of leaders that are mentioned in the Bible, from Adam, the first man, including Noah, including Methuselah, who was he was actually the father or grandfather of Noah. Later on, it was Enoch, right? Which was a great Kabbalist, which I mentioned him, that when he passed away from this world, comparatively young for their generation, God made him into this incredible archangel, which we discussed about 2 weeks ago, which is called Matat, right, -Ron, this one interior minister archangel. So many of them practiced Kabbalah. Many of them were connected to archangels, and that was long before came Moses with the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. Because they were prophets, because they reached very high, because they dedicated their lives to God, to divinity, and they really walked the way of God every inch of the way. They didn't, flip, and sometimes yes, sometimes no. They dedicated the private life, the intimate life, and the professional life, careers. Everything was with the connection to God, and therefore, as it says about Noah, he walked with God. Walking means to walk in his ways, to go visit the sick, to go comfort those grieving, to go bury the dead, to give food to those that are homeless, or to orphan children. This means to walk in the ways of God, over and above what the simple meaning is, just to follow simple commandments. Yes, Mike, any 1 more question and we'll call it a night?
Okay, so I actually have a question from
Go ahead.
what you just said. So it is often thought, and I'm sure I'm asking this because I'm sure other people would have the same question. It's often
Sure, go
thought
ahead.
when it said in Genesis that Enoch, in English, Dr. Gil Tivon was just talking about, that he walked with God. That I think in the
Right.
King James Version it says that he lived 365 years, he walked with God, and then
Correct.
he was no more. And
Yes.
a lot of people take that to mean that God literally took him to heaven, physically changed him into a different being. But from what you just explained, to walk with God means something a little bit different. So, but however, he was changed into the archangel Metatron in English.
Right.
So,
Right.
is this an example of the multi-dimensional meanings of the scriptures coming out, where it means
Absolutely, but yeah, I understand. Absolutely. So we have a verse in Isaiah which says, "I will give you." God speaking to Isaiah, I will let you to be a walker amongst those who stand. So simple meaning is that many people are very passive and they're followers. They don't take control and they're not proactive in their life. They just sit and wait and they don't walk. Walking means moving, making progress from where I am to a different place. And God has asked Isaiah, I've chosen you because you are a walker, because you make progress. So if we want to be of any kind of prominence, of any kind of significance in the next world, our work in this world is the training ground where it starts over here. So both meanings are correct, Mike, which means Matat, and I can't say the whole name because it is a very, very holy archangel, one of the highest archangels we have. And as you mentioned his name, so he first of all he walked in the ways of God. You're not chosen, you're not becoming a general in the army if you didn't prove yourself in all the lower ranks. So he proved himself in all the lower ranks, whatever it is that God asked him in all his life on earth, which was 350 years, which is on that time was comparatively quite short compared to Noah, who lived some 900 years plus, and Methuselah, his grandfather, who lived 962 years, the longest ever, and Adam, who lived 970. Let's say it's like 93 years today. And he lived only 35 years in our comparative language of today. And therefore, even though what the Bible says is exact, so therefore, once he walked with God in this world, walked his way, and there's an incredible commandment in the Bible which says you should walk in God's ways, which is exactly what I told you. Being compassionate, being loving kindness, being seeing other people, sensitive to other people, which is a great work against the normal self-centeredness that we have inside us, nature. And once he proved himself and passed away from this world, then obviously the road was open for him to get the highest position of that archangel. In other words, you're not chosen because God prefers you. You make your actions here and make sure that God chooses you because of your incredible actions. So every day you live here is an incredible gift. Every day you can elevate yourself or you can give way to your animalistic urges. The more you control yourself, the more you govern your life, the more you walk that path, the more you become more sensitive and compassionate to others and out of that selfish bubble that we live in because that's our nature, the more you can promise a long life, a qualitative life, and an incredible infinite life once we are, and a more influence and impact that we can make as human beings on this earth. Mike, I thank you very much, and all the listeners, and later on all the viewers that will also be there. And we're definitely going to, please God, meet next week. I think that next week I'll also join through Facebook because I'm hard of finding and seeing either the chat of the other people that are involved. But from my perspective, it was a very good lecture. I hope that those that did join were able to view it and to watch it. And hopefully later on it will be put up into the YouTube as well as the Facebook, and we can all gain from it. Thank you very much for hosting us, and have a great night.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Gil Tivon, everybody. Thank you very so much for everybody else who joined us. I just want to go on and make that last announcement, which was that Dr. Gil Tivon has a new book out, which is called Kabbalah and I hope I don't butcher this. Kabbalah and Etzchime, Wheels of the Tree of Life. So I'm going to bring up the cover for that right now, as you guys can see. And yes, again, another announcement was that we are going to start having new classes on Mondays, which are going to have everything to do with metaphysics, with holistic healing, with just Kabbalah, and all related topics. Yes, we would just like to thank everybody again for joining us again this week. Thank you, everybody. If you would like to reach out to Dr. Gil Tivon, you could reach him at, excuse me, let me try to find it. You could reach him at giltivon@gmail.com. I like the ring to that. If anyone would like to contact me, I can add you to a list where you'll get updates about new podclasses and videos that are coming up. You can also reach me on Facebook, Instagram, or you can email me at thatdudemike023@gmail.com. Again, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, or wherever else on social media. Just type in the name Mike Ray or Michael Albert Ray. I hope you'll be able to join us next time. Please remember, if you're watching on Facebook, please follow the Mental Health, Spirituality, Mysticism, and Metaphysics Facebook group. Or if you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to get notifications for when new videos will be posted. The YouTube channel, again, is Metaphysical Sciences TV. Where you can find an archive of old episodes from Podclasses with both Dr. Gil Tivon and my own videos in Podclasses titled Mental Health, Spirituality, and Metaphysics Talk with Mike Ray. Remember, we'll see you here for another episode of Inner Secrets Revealed Kabbalah class with Dr. Gil Tivon next week. Same time, same place, even more to discover. Thank you all again. Can't thank you enough. We hope to see you next time. Have a great morning, afternoon, or night. I'm Mike Ray, and this was Inner Secrets Revealed. Thanks for joining us.